10 days, 248 hours, buried beneath concrete, steel, and dust. No sunlight, almost no water, very little air. Most people don't survive even 3 days under rubble, but she did. This is the true survival story of Elena Lamez. On February 6, 2023, at 4:17 a.m., a massive 7.8 magnitude earthquake struck southern Turkey near the city of Gaziantep. It was one of the strongest earthquakes in the region in decades. Entire apartment buildings collapsed in seconds. Families were asleep when the shaking began. Within minutes, thousands were trapped. 17-year-old Elena Lamez was inside her family's apartment building in Kahramanmaraş, Turkey, when the earthquake hit. The building crumbled, walls folded inward, floors pancaked down. In less than a minute, her world turned into darkness. When the shaking stopped, Elena was trapped beneath layers of debris, concrete slabs pressed around her, metal rods twisted overhead. There was almost no space to move. Rescue efforts began immediately across the region, but the destruction was overwhelming. Thousands of buildings had collapsed. Emergency teams worked non-stop. Search dogs moved across the ruins. Volunteers used their hands to dig when machinery couldn't reach. The first 24 hours are critical after a major earthquake, then 48, then 72. After 3 days, survival chances dropped sharply, but Elena was still alive. Underneath the rubble, she had found herself in a small pocket of space, just enough to breathe. She could not see. She could barely move. Dust filled the air. Time became impossible to measure. Day blended into night. She called out when she had the strength. Then she waited. Above ground, temperatures dropped at night. Rescuers faced freezing cold, exhaustion, and aftershocks, but they kept searching. On the 10th day after the earthquake, nearly 248 hours later, something extraordinary happened. Rescue workers heard a faint sound beneath the debris. At first, they weren't sure. Then they listened again. A voice. Elena was still alive. Carefully, slowly, rescuers began removing layers of concrete. Every movement had to be precise. Heavy machinery could not risk causing further collapse. They dug by hand. After hours of delicate work, they reached her. She had survived 10 days trapped under rubble. When she was finally pulled out alive, the rescue team and onlookers erupted in disbelief and relief. Doctors rushed her to the hospital immediately. Medical staff were astonished. Most people cannot survive more than a few days without adequate water, yet Elena had endured nearly 10. Experts later explained that small air pockets can sometimes form when buildings collapse in certain ways. These void spaces can provide limited oxygen and even small amounts of trapped moisture. It is rare, extremely rare. Her survival was described as a miracle by many, but survival in disasters often comes down to a combination of factors: structural collapse patterns, air pockets, body positioning, and mental endurance. During her time beneath the rubble, Elena had to remain calm. Panic increases oxygen consumption. Fear can accelerate dehydration. Remaining still can mean the difference between life and death. After her rescue, she was treated for dehydration and injuries, but she was conscious. Her story spread quickly across Turkey and around the world. In a disaster that claimed tens of thousands of lives, her rescue became a symbol of hope. Rescue workers said her voice was faint but clear. She had not given up. Earthquakes are among the most unpredictable natural disasters on Earth. They strike without warning. They last seconds, but their impact can last years. In Turkey and Syria, entire communities were changed forever on that February morning. Amid the devastation, stories like Elena's reminded people why rescue efforts never stop, even after 24 hours, even after 72 hours, even after a week, because sometimes someone is still waiting, still breathing, still hoping. Elena Lamez survived 248 hours trapped beneath a collapsed building. 10 days in darkness, 10 days in silence, 10 days between life and death. Her survival was not just about luck. It was about endurance, about the human body's ability to cling to life in extreme conditions, and about rescuers who refuse to stop searching. In disasters, statistics often dominate headlines, but behind every number is a person, a family, a story. Elena's story became one of the most powerful survival stories of the 2023 Turkey earthquake. A reminder that hope can exist even under tons of concrete, that sometimes survival is measured not in strength but in the quiet decision to keep breathing, to keep waiting. To keep believing. 248 hours. Buried, forgotten by time, but not by rescuers, and somehow she survived. For nearly 3 days he was trapped, in total darkness, 30 meters below the ocean surface. No light, no food, almost no oxygen. Everyone thought he was dead, but he wasn't. This is the true survival story of Harrison Akin. On May 26, 2013, the tugboat Jascon 4 was operating off the coast of Nigeria in the Atlantic Ocean. Harrison Akin was the ship's cook. That morning, heavy waves struck the vessel. A sudden swell caused the ship to tilt violently. Within minutes, the tugboat capsized and sank to the ocean floor, about 30 meters 100 feet underwater. Most of the crew were trapped inside. There was no time to escape. Water rushed in rapidly. Harrison was in the bathroom when he felt the vessel flip. He was thrown into darkness as the ship filled with water, but by pure chance he found himself inside a small air pocket in one of the compartments. That pocket of trapped air would become the difference between life and death. Above the ocean floor, everyone assumed the crew had perished. Rescue teams eventually arrived to recover bodies. Divers descended to inspect the wreck. Inside the ship, Harrison was alone for hours, then a full day, then 2 days. He had no food, very little water. The temperature was cold. The air was thick and humid. He prayed. He rationed his breathing. He stayed as calm as possible to conserve oxygen. After nearly 60 hours underwater, divers entered the wreck to recover bodies. One diver moved through the dark interior using a flashlight, and then a hand reached out. The diver froze. Harrison was alive. The diver later described the shock of seeing movement inside what was believed to be a grave. Harrison was the only survivor. He was carefully guided out of the wreck and brought to the surface, but the danger wasn't over because he had been underwater so long. Rapid ascent could cause fatal decompression sickness. He was placed in a decompression chamber for several days. Against all expectations, he survived. 11 crew members did not make it. Harrison Akin became known worldwide as the man who survived 60 hours underwater. Later interviews revealed how he stayed calm, relied on faith, and controlled his breathing to survive. He has said that panic would have killed him faster than drowning. Today, he speaks publicly about resilience and survival mindset. His story reminds us that survival often depends on what happens in the mind. 30 meters below the ocean, in complete darkness, believed dead, he stayed calm, and that calmness kept him alive. Sometimes survival is not about strength, not about speed, not about escape. Sometimes it's about not giving up when no one believes you're still alive. A metal pole flew through the air at highway speed and crashed straight into her car. Doctors later said she had only a 1% chance of survival, but somehow she lived. This is the true story of Janina Akbaravber and the seconds that decided whether she would live or die. On August 25, 2025, Janina was driving along the 10 freeway in San Bernardino, California. It was a normal afternoon. Traffic was steady, nothing unusual. Her younger brother was in the car with her. Ahead of them, a truck was moving with traffic. Then, without warning, a long metal pole became dislodged from that vehicle. It lifted into the air. There was no time to brake, no time to swerve. In a split second, the pole flew toward Janina's car and crashed through the front. The force of the impact sent the metal object into her torso. Most people would lose control. Most people would panic. But Janina did something that likely saved her life. She stayed conscious. Despite the shock and severe injury, she kept her hands on the steering wheel and guided the vehicle safely to the shoulder of the freeway. Her younger brother was still inside. She stopped the car. Then she called 911. Emergency responders arrived quickly. When they saw the scene, they immediately understood how serious it was. The metal object was still lodged in place. Removing it improperly could have caused catastrophic bleeding. Paramedics stabilized her carefully and transported her to Loma Linda University Medical Center, one of the region's leading trauma hospitals. Inside the emergency room, doctors worked fast. Her injuries were extensive. Her colon had been severely damaged. Part of her liver was injured. One kidney had been affected. The trauma team assessed the situation and informed her family that her odds of survival were extremely low, roughly 1%, but surgeons prepared for emergency operations. The first surgery lasted 4 hours. Then came additional procedures to repair internal damage and control complications. Over the next several weeks, Janina underwent multiple major surgeries. She remained hospitalized for nearly 2 months. Machines monitored her breathing. Nurses checked her constantly. Doctors adjusted treatment plans daily. Every hour mattered. Recovery was not immediate. There were setbacks, pain, exhaustion, moments of uncertainty, but slowly her body began responding. Her vital signs stabilized. Her strength gradually returned, and the impossible began to look possible. Throughout this time, Janina leaned on her family. Her younger brother, who had been in the car that day, remained by her side. The emotional toll of the accident was just as heavy as the physical injuries. Even after leaving the hospital, she struggled with anxiety. Driving again felt terrifying. Highways no longer felt routine. The sound of traffic triggered memories of that moment. Medical expenses approached nearly $1 million. Although insurance helped, the financial stress added another layer of challenge. But through everything, Janina focused on gratitude. She publicly thanked the paramedics and surgeons who saved her life. She called them her angels. Before the accident, Janina was studying to become a nurse. She had chosen a career centered around helping others. After surviving a trauma that doctors believed she would not survive, her purpose became even stronger. She said that experiencing compassionate care during her darkest moment changed her perspective. She wanted to return that care to others. She wanted to be the calm voice in someone else's emergency. Her story spread quickly. People across the country were shocked by the statistics, a 1% survival rate. But survival isn't only about numbers, it's about seconds. The second she kept control of the steering wheel, the second she decided to pull over instead of freezing, the seconds emergency crews responded without hesitation, the hours surgeons worked without giving up. Each small action created a chain of survival. Today, Janina continues physical therapy and medical follow-ups. Healing takes time. Some scars are visible, some are not, but she is alive. She is continuing her studies, she is rebuilding her confidence, and she is sharing her story to remind people how fragile life can be. On an ordinary freeway, on an ordinary day in August 2025, everything changed in a single instant. Death arrived without warning, but so did resilience. Sometimes survival is not about being fearless, it's about staying focused when fear takes over. It's about holding control for just a few seconds longer. It's about refusing to let the worst moment become the final moment.